I want to welcome you to Spiritual Badass TV, Danny Donayre.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And I'd love to hear about your personal experiences and how self-love has played a role in your life, on your spiritual path, and anything that you want to talk about in regard to self-love and
Oh, yes. So huge, huge, huge. So they say that our biggest struggles are our biggest lessons or our greatest teachers. And so for me, self-love has been a huge lesson, and it's an ongoing one that I can literally notice when I'm being gifted, especially lately, because it was so clear for me through my creative process. I've been a creative person since I was little. I danced and acted when I was in elementary school. I'm sort of from the hip hop generation, was literally in a hip hop group in the 90s, and sort of translated all that into spiritual and metaphysical endeavors as my life became more entrenched in sort of the things that we see as struggle or new challenges. And and throughout that process, it was clear to me that there was this deep sense of questioning within myself of whether I was authentic or worthy or capable. And as I progressed and learned and contributed, that stayed with me pretty powerfully. So soon enough, I realized, hey, that's a big one. That's something I really need to look at and really work on. And so lately, I've had a lot of breakthroughs in that department, in relation to doing it regardless, or in relation to being more in tune with my intention and connection, and not so caught up in myself, in my own self-doubt or self-judgment. And that has freed me up a lot to do more and enjoy more. But still, so my perspective is clearer, but still I find myself in those ebbs and flows. And even today, I have to share with you that I'm so grateful that I'm doing this with you, because the last couple of days have been an ebb. I guess that would be an ebb, right? And not so flowing. And it's caused me to stop. And in those moments when I want to sort of give up on something, or just believe that maybe I'm not capable of something or not deserving of something right now, and really reframe and totally reframe, and literally driving here as I kind of knew that you were going to be asking me these questions. In just that moment of stopping and being aware, I was able to shift a bit, and able to have some realizations that come from a perspective that says, again, I'm not myself, that I can have self-love most powerfully when I realize that I am beyond the object and beyond the emotion and beyond the things, and really be present to that miracle, and grow from that space of excitement and gratitude. And even in this moment, I thought, I really wanted to say that in a more concise and eloquent way. But so what? I'm happy. I'm happy to be saying it at all. And that sort of balance and that sort of place of allowance and acceptance and appreciation is just a really great place to be, that I find myself more able to get back to, even if I'm thrown off. So I hope there was an answer in there somewhere for you.
yeah, you've said a lot, and when you're doing performing arts, especially, it's kind of coming face to face with these negative voices, that sabotage you. I'm sure it's like a really fast mirror, right? If you're doubting yourself on the inside, someone in the audience is going to reflect that to you pretty fast, right?
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
you're feeling good about what you're doing, they're going to reflect that too.
absolutely.
And I love what you're saying. It's not you. It's sort of like the way I look at it. It's like the ego is very concerned, with judging and saving face. Oh, am I good enough? Was that good enough? But it's the higher self that wants to come through and express. And
Yes,
that's art is a vehicle for expression. I mean, it could be
yes,
anything. Everybody's creative and expressive in their own way, but
yes,
when we get it, we block it with the ego saying, "Well, I don't know if that's good enough." We're getting
yeah,
in the way of our higher selves
yes,
expression.
yes. I love that. I have to warn you. So I write short prose and quotes and affirmations. I actually wrote a book of quotes, and I'm working on another. And I warn you because they'll come to me and I'll say, you know what, I wrote a quote about that, or you know that reminds me of this. And actually, the book in itself was a practice in exactly this, where I said I'd been writing these quotes and affirmations for like 7 years at the time, and I had different ideas and was comparing myself to other people and thinking how I should sort of share what I have. And it was very frustrating and just caused me to procrastinate and doubt for a long time. And at one point I said, I'm just going to do it. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book and I'm going to call it 7 Years in 7 Days, because I'm going to take 7 years worth of sort of thoughts and things that I want to share. And I'm going to write this book in 7 days so that I can just say, hey, just do it. And I talk about the process. And by even just committing to that, the book sort of became something I never really thought it was going to be. And it became, instead of sort of just my thoughts, it became a guided journal using my thoughts to self-reflect and then self-actualize by actually setting weekly goals inspired by these themes. And for example, as you're talking, one of the main themes that I've been sharing lately is this idea that practice makes perfect unnecessary. Practice makes perfect unnecessary. So when you're in the expression, as you say, you're no longer thinking or comparing. You are so not only present in what you're doing, but for the most part, in awe or in enjoyment of this unseen magic that's happening that you can't really stop and explain, because it's just something that you're immersed in and something that you are enjoying to a point where you couldn't have like paid for it or organized it or done it yourself. And it just becomes this miracle. The same way if you just stop and realize you're breathing, you're like, wow. And so sometimes those simple things, and as we're talking, I'm sure they'll come up, but it's like when you talk about, for example, art. When I experience art, I realize the same sort of dynamic where you have an awareness. And so I wrote a quote, a very simple quote, when an artist friend of mine had painted my book cover. And I was so grateful when I said, art is permission to love. Art is permission to love. Because as soon as you sort of look at something that reminds you that there's an abstract experience happening, that there's sort of some other out-of-body awareness that you can have simply by admiring something and connecting with it, it gives you that same permission, that same allowance to be out of the norm and out of sort of any confinement about what's supposed to be, because you can't deny that this random feeling came up for you. And for me, that's the same idea. Like that energy is the same permission that allows you to be loving, to really like be that loving being that you are.
Wow. That's amazing. Art is permission to love.
Art is permission to love.
That's deep. That is so deep. I mean, I was thinking about, I've always heard that art is defined by its ability to invoke emotion. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is. Like that, you can't define it otherwise. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because sometimes people would go into a gallery and, you know, they like certain pieces and they don't like other pieces. But if it provokes emotion in them, you know, if it's a strong emotion, oh, I don't like that, and it's still, it's done its job, you know.
Right.
And that's part of love too, is to love our shadow side, to love the parts that we don't want to look at, the parts that we call negative or whatever. And that's self-love.
Oh my gosh. So this is so grateful to you, because you're giving greater context to what I was sort of saying. And absolutely, like, it's so it's such a beautiful affirmation, not about anything that I've said, but about the same source that you and I are both sort of coming from, that we're both from. And we're just in this conversation, like in this same room, in the same surrounded by the same art, and we're sort of responding to it. And so, per my warning, I have a quote that says, a love that expects receives little, a love that accepts receives all. So now what you're saying is that's the sense of like, okay, if I look and don't like something, but then I don't appreciate that awareness, well, then I don't get that piece. Maybe I just get like, I'll go look at what I like. But if I accept that I don't like it, and I accept it, you know, that it still has some purpose, now I'm getting even a fuller experience of myself. And like what you're saying is there can be love. Love is in everything. So clearly there can be love and dislike. There's this love in everything, because in that moment we're like, I don't like that, and I love the clarity that gives me, or I love the way that emphasizes what I do like, or I love that I can still be so grateful for the courage it took to even create that, or what other peripheral aspects of enjoyment and awareness we can have that are like crumbs on the table that we mostly leave, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, for me, again, I'll say to you, Debbie Ann, if there was an old me maybe 5 years ago that potentially having a rough day, being stuck in traffic, I would have said, you know what, I don't know if I can do this interview, today. And that's for me is a clear example, and nothing, everything to do with me saying, I'm not worthy, I'm not authentic, I'm not in a good headspace, and exact example in the moment of me potentially not loving the wholeness of myself and this opportunity and you and the world and the fact that this is possible and happening, and would have totally denied myself the opportunity to be here now, which is an amazing place to be. I'm so grateful and having such a wonderful time. And I just like to point those things out to myself and whenever I can as an example, because I feel there's constantly places where we can further enjoy and expand and express and be present and trust and then receive whatever's there, which is so much.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're here in the Earth game, and it's a game with duality, with
Yeah.
contrast. So, I mean, accepting that and appreciating it go we go pretty far that way. I mean, there's always something to love, even
Yeah.
if you're really hating on something, you can say, well, I'm glad for the clarity, like you said earlier. Or, if you see something that you don't prefer,
Yeah.
somebody else likes, you can say, well,
Yeah.
I'm so glad we have all this freedom to have variety. Isn't it great, all the variety we have in this Earth game? It's incredible diversity here.
Yes, absolutely. I like to say sometimes that contrast is a running start. So contrast is a running start. So that yeah, maybe we feel like, oh, we're over here, but now we have all this space to like, okay, but let me run to that joy, the exhilaration, or the thing that now again I have more clarity on, or that there's more sort of a clear path because this no longer is a focus or this no longer is a question. Um, or even just the momentum of forgiving or the momentum of accepting empowers you enough to just go forward in whatever direction you want. So I like to do that. I like to take things that are supposedly either stagnant or somehow struggles and give them a connotation that allows them to sort of be momentum or be encouragement or inspiration. Kind of like the same thing with sort of like transmuting or using energy in that way. So it's cool.
That's fantastic. You have so much to offer the world,
Uh,
inspiration and your art. And um, tell us about a current project you're working on.
oh, thank you so much. So funny, I have a workshop this weekend surrounding my book. So the book is called 7 Years in 7 Days, A Life of Now. So the subtitle is A Life of Now because what happened was I took this opportunity, I think it was 2011, to say, okay, 7 years and 7 days. When I'm interviewed about what it was, I want to tell the story over and over because I want to tell people, hey, you can do it. Just stop. It doesn't have to be your best whatever, but it does have to be your first whatever. It doesn't have to be your best book, but it has to be your first one. It doesn't have to be your best, I'm sorry, or your best I love you, your best workshop, your best job, but it has to be your first. It has to be that going into the unknown and whatever it is. But in 2011, I sat down with this whole idea of what this book was going to be, and I took the 7 days, right on 4th of July, and I did it. But I got about maybe a third of the way done with what my idea of what this book was going to be. And so I was going to take like seven's kind of my number. I actually used the seed of life as the book cover, so these 7 circles to symbolize sort of the genesis of creation from void into manifestation. And at the end of this, supposed 77 quotes with my sort of thoughts about where they came from and why they exist and what it means, I think I got about 20 something done. And I had these quotes and these things, and I picked out all these quotes. And then I put it to the side, in the summer of 2011. And I said, well, I guess I was right. I couldn't do it. I didn't finish or whatever it was. And so I put it to the side. A year later, I was working this job. I was just some sales job, and I was so reluctant to go to this job because I'm not a salesperson at all, but it was something I felt like I had to do at the time. And I wrote a quote for myself, and I wrote a quote to give myself momentum and go into this job. And the quote was, if love and beauty can be found in the most unlikely of places, go there. So it was like, okay, so I'm going to look at it that way. I'm going here because I'm going to find something that I can't find anywhere else. And I'm in this sales job. Um, and one day I'm saying, okay, now I need to go. Now I need to be gone. Now I need to be sharing and focusing and aware of what the universe has next. So I started meeting people. And this is very interesting now that I'm talking about this, because I met five different people, and they were all Aquariuses. They were all women. And they were all somehow creative or interested in metaphysical. And this was all within like a 3-month span. And they all said to me, wow, for whatever way I helped them, whatever way I spoke to them, encouraged them, I said, wow, you really got to do something with this. You really have to get this out. And one in particular had just lost her husband. And she had gone to see someone for a past life regression. And this woman said, you literally are going to meet an air sign who has some wisdom to share, and you have to help this person. And we got together the next day for lunch, and after a long time of sort of me avoiding it, and she's like, I just went to this person, but this is so weird. I wonder what this means. Turns out not only am I an air sign, but my last name, Donayre, in Spanish, Donayre, literally means master of air. Don is like Don Julio, Don Juan. It's like, the Lord of the space, and aire literally means air. And I started sharing these quotes and stuff with her, and really had an impact. We're dear friends to this day. All that to say, I went back to the book. I went back to what I had. And it went from being just me writing to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to encourage people to take action now. And instead of saying, write all my thoughts, I'm going to take 52 of these 77 quotes and make this a weekly guided journal where I share a quote, then I ask a question, I let you reflect, and on the side, I have a prompt that says, now I will. And you can, for every week, you can make a decision that you're going to do something that week. Whether it's something very specific, like call someone you haven't talked to in years, or volunteer somewhere, or it's just open the door and smile at people. But it's really about you getting connected with who you are, what's important to you, and how you can physically manifest that in the world. And the book became that. And so I went back and I just did it. I just announced that I had this book. I just started this campaign to pre-sell it. And I just started doing it. My friend painted the cover. Another friend designed it. I found out how to do it. And just momentum of the intention took over. So a year later, it happened. And in 2013, I self-published this book. And it's led me to other things. It led me to a radio show where I met everywhere, so many people, to like this online stuff, how I met you. That other show, that FM show, led me to this online show. So all these things. Long story long, I'm doing a workshop with the book that's sort of a group coaching workshop where I share this with people. I share sort of my journey, and we go through the process. We find out what someone needs, where their block is, and we reflect on a theme as a catalyst to get us there from all different perspectives, and I guide them through, and as a group, through action. And we literally take action on the spot. We'll text something, we'll send an email, we'll post something, we'll write a plan to begin to manifest immediately in the direction that reflects us more than we feel we are being reflected now. And I just started a new program called Right on Track, Right on Time, which is more of creative consulting and accountability for writing your first book or your first workshop or any type of content or self-expression. I have one woman that's writing a poem a week. I have another woman that's writing her first book, and we're halfway through. So that's something I just started. It's called Right on Track, Right on Time, that I'm really loving. So that's kind of what's happening.
Fantastic. It sounds like you're really helping people overcome inertia and some of those. I think there's two traps. There's one, the future trap. The future. There is no future, actually. There is only now, And you always think, oh, I'll get to that next year eventually. And then it's a trap, And then there's the trap of perfectionism, which I am often falling victim to within myself. It's not ready yet. It's not perfect yet. Like you're saying, you wanted it to have 77 items and it only had 52. And, sometimes we have to change course, right?
Yeah.
I think what's going on a lot of times, this is just a way of thinking about it. When I get creative downloads from my higher self. And
Yes.
they come like a torrent, they're really intense. Like I get all this download, and then my lower self, if you will, my human self, is stuck with the task of editing, which
Yes.
takes way longer. Like the download is quick, but then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I have to reshape this thing. So,
Yeah.
so it's a
I
matter of,
totally hear you on that. As you're talking, I'm like, that's one of the reasons I love doing that creative consulting part because all I see is the raw, beautiful, beautiful energy and the raw potential and excitement. So as you're talking, I'm like, I want to hear it. Like, I mean, I don't see any like unreadiness or any flaw. I'm just like, whoa, I want to hear it. Tell me more. Like, let me see, and I feel like sometimes we really need that. I really feel like always it's like a collective celebration, a collective reflection, affirmation. It just takes another, literally maybe another person to jump in and just celebrate and uplift and sort of help do that piece. I think is so important. I know I love that and pray for that all the time, and that's why I love to give it so much. So yeah, I'm indirectly telling you if you ever need someone to just tell you how awesome it is, I'm here. Okay. But I do have so you're gonna be showered with quotes because you're just like, it's funny you're just setting me up so good. So there I have a quote that says the only difference between looking forward and looking backward is the direction of your distraction. So like when you say that, it's absolutely like those things don't exist, and more importantly, they're keeping you from something else, which you would I'm sure enjoy much more, and other people would too. So that's really good to remember. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a great service, seeing people's raw value, and
Yeah,
their enthusiasm, and not seeing all the other stuff that,
yeah,
the critic that we have in our head sometimes.
yeah,
And most people are like that too.
yeah,
I've read several books that were bestsellers that were all filled with typos,
yeah.
and it's like,
Nice,
so what? You know what I mean? The
nice,
message is there, the enthusiasm, the passion is there, and people respond to it and they get
oh,
value out of it. It doesn't
yes.
matter. It's
Oh
just
my
it's
gosh.
my ego that thinks that stuff matters, so I spend hours making sure there's no typos, but it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
No way. No way. I love that you said that. And I it's so interesting because I so relate to that, and it's so true. And right now, there was something you said that really struck me about these bestsellers. But getting back to like the love theme, when you were saying sort of to look at the raw potential and not the critic or anything like that, but I think it's going back to where we started, where to look at the raw potential, and the critic only makes you love the raw potential more because you know how the struggle it was to get the raw potential forward enough to be seen while the critic was pulling you back. And also the raw critic and all that stuff makes you relate to it so much. Says, wow, I'm okay too. We're both human. I can be in this conversation. I can be in this collaboration because you have it, I have it. We're both, dealing with that. And it brings this sort of high, deeper connection and stronger empathy towards our journey, like what we're both going through in the process. So I feel like seeing the raw potential is awesome, but knowing that there's other stuff around it only makes it more, more like valuable and beautiful. So I think that's really cool. And I have a quote that says, "Mistakes are the shortcuts to love." Mistakes are the shortcuts to love because in that moment you can make a decision immediately. I forgive you. I see you. I accept you. I'm with you. And of course your own is the same thing. It's that moment where you're forced to sort of be present with that because you realize you can't do it by yourself. You're sort of flawed, and so you have to be in the presence of love. Um, so I like that. I like that a lot.
All right. Here's to the presence of love.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Love it.
All right. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you or see what you're up to, is there a good website or a social
Yeah.
media page you'd like to send them to?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the website is my name, DannyDonayre.com. So just my name, DannyDonayre.com, Danny Donayre. And you can also find me on Facebook. The website will take you to Facebook, and the website can, you can contact me directly there. but definitely on Facebook as well. I try to post a lot there, and then you can kind of see the other projects. You can see the FM talk show and the online stuff. I have quotes there and stuff, and I'll share from time to time my quotes. So yeah, I love to hear from people and connect. And to be honest with you, the only thing I'm looking for is continuing to go through that process so I can have more clarity on what is real, which is sort of the unseen and the energy that we are and come from. And I say all that just to say that I invite anyone and everyone to contact me for any reason, because I feel like that is my greatest joy, to have that connection and to have that growth by that. And again, perfect place to just thank you so much, Debbianne, for this opportunity to be present with you. It's not only an opportunity for me to share, but it is totally a recharging affirmation to continue. And I'll tell you that I totally needed it today. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your time. And we can presume that anybody who happens upon this interview later on needed it at that time.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Absolutely.
because we're all helping each other out in this Earth game. So all right.
Yes.
All right. Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you so much for all you do, and so great to see you.